This is a Celtic Exchange Weekly. This is Tino, and this week I'm joined by James and Paddy as we cover all things Celtic. The big news that's broken today is that Captain Callum McGregor has signed a new 5-year deal with the club, meaning that he'll be here until summer 2028 and to help the boys lift 7 in a row. Paddy, welcome back after your summer break. We'll get into all of that in a bit of detail shortly, but what's your initial response to that Callum McGregor news?
My initial response is don't put 7 in a row on that straight away. Let's just see how long Rodgers stays with us.
It's in the bag.
Amazing news. I think absolutely massive statement for the team. And what we're basically saying there is that we're not really worried unless another Saudi Arabian team come in with mega bucks that we're going to lose many of our bigger players for the remainder of this summer window, I think. I think that the only worry that I would possibly have just now is Rio Hatate. I think there's just a little bit quiet on his front. But other than that, I just think it's a massive statement of intent, massive support for the new manager, and basically just all things continuing to go here at Celtic as well. Brilliant.
Yeah, big news. James, everyone's been speculating about who might come in this summer, and obviously that's hugely important, but it's equally important to nail down key players such as McGregor, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's the phase we're in. You know, Rodgers is working out who they absolutely need to keep here to kick next season off well. And for me, from the very get-go, McGregor was my absolute must-stay. McGregor and CCV are my hot two, and there's a couple others, you know, Johnson and stuff like that. But, you know, contractually he's quite safe. So it's massive. You know, every team needs a Callum McGregor, you know, just the guy that just runs everything. He's the absolute heart of the team. And so many managers have shown it over the years that he's the guy they go to and he's the guy they trust. You know, Postecoglou made him captain, you know, straight away and stuff like that. So, yeah, absolutely delighted with that.
Yeah, brilliant news. Okay, let's take a look at what's coming up on this week's show. So first up, we'll be focusing on that Callum McGregor news and on what his new deal means as we head into the Brendan Rodgers Revolution Part 2. Speaking of new deals, Kyogo and Daizen Maeda have also joined that particular party, and we discuss the importance of also having them on board for the foreseeable future. And one man who definitely won't be there is Jota, but we can't not talk about that farewell message that he posted as he took some time to thank Celtic for the memories. Okay, let's get started with all things Callum McGregor, with the big news that he's committed himself to Celtic until summer 2028. Not that we need too much reminding on how successful he's been at Celtic, but here's a short fact file just on Callum and his achievements. So he turned 30 just there on the 14th of June. He's made 420 appearances for Celtic, having joined the club as a 9-year-old before making his first team debut against Reykjavik in a Champions League qualifier in July 2014, where he scored the only goal of the game. Since then, he's won how many honours at Celtic, James? An idea, Paddy?
No.
I might be wrong, but
try it. Now's the time.
20?
20 is correct. You've been reading your Celtic news today.
So is he only behind James Forrest in the current team?
It's certainly the current team. And there's only about 2 or 3 of all time ahead of him. It's really impressive. So, yep, he's won 20 major honours at Celtic, which is 8 league titles, 5 Scottish Cups, 7 League Cups, and that also includes 5 trebles, and that's a world record for any individual. He's got 53 caps for Scotland, and that includes 3 goals, bizarrely, all of which are scored at Hampden Park, and all of which are in June. So he scored in June 21, June 22 and June 23 for Scotland. Paddy, it might be deemed fairly unusual to give a 30-year-old a 5-year deal, but if you've listened to his interview today, he's just so hungry to bring more success to Celtic, and he doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon.
No, we obviously we're over the moon about being able to keep him and look at the length of that deal as a massive statement for the club, and how they see the future of this team being built around him. We have spoke about at length last season whether or not he's more suited to be in this holding role, or do we bring him back further forward. That is a big question for Brendan Rodgers, I think, in terms of who he brings in this season as well. But make no mistake about it, he's going to be pivotal for how we operate. I think there's a bit of the, you know, why are we putting 5 years on it? I think it's a reward for basically the service he's given us, the thick and thin that he's came through, and what he's delivered. 9 years of success, and probably going to continue that with a 10th year as well. I just think he's a massive player, a massive inspiration to anyone in that dressing room as well. And that's not just the players that are signing for us, that's all your youth players coming through and looking at him as well. He's huge for Celtic.
Yeah, to have been somewhere, anywhere for 20, 21 years is phenomenal. But to be at a club like Celtic, James, where the pressure is constantly on to perform and to win, just says a lot about him. I'm going to let you into a wee secret. I didn't rate Callum McGregor at all.
Not a secret.
When it came through. Right, it just wasn't for me. I just didn't see it at the time. I didn't see the player that he would go on to become, put it that way, and maybe that says more about me than how he was playing at the time. I don't think I was the only one as well. I think there were some doubts initially when he came through. He obviously had that spell at Notts County on loan before he actually made his Celtic debut. And he had to win over some doubters, certainly in the early stages, but he's now blown any doubts out the water a long time ago, actually, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't based on nothing, your opinion on him. I thought he was quite wasteful in possession in the early days, and to a large degree the making of him was Brendan Rodgers and who's in charge, so Rodgers transformed him from a very good player into a guy that we just couldn't lose under any circumstances. So and that's how players develop. Sometimes it goes one way, sometimes it goes the other, but he's outstanding.
Yeah. There you go, Paddy.
What we need to remember though is that he didn't find his natural position of midfield until under maybe just the end of the Dyla period, and then with Rodgers he was playing up front for Notts County. When he came back to us, he was kind of getting played just off the front line. He was still more like an inverted forward. So I think that it took him time to realise like maybe that's not going to be your position. Maybe we've tried this out. So as much as we're thanking Rodgers for that, I'll always stick up for Ronnie here.
Absolutely.
I think Dyla made the call. No, do you know what? Let's give this a little go further back and see how you get on as well. Modern day makes stay.
I've got visions of Callum McGregor in his early appearances coming in off the right wing at times, and off the left hand side as well. I mean, effectively, and listen, Brendan Rodgers played him at left back at Ibrox. Let us not forget that. He's effectively played everywhere apart from centre half, right back, and goalie. And he's got 5 years to maybe tick those boxes as well. But I read something just as Brendan Rodgers was confirmed at Celtic from somebody saying that his appointment hadn't gone down well at all with some of the existing players in the building. That can only mean guys like Callum McGregor, James Forrest, Mikey Johnson, and potentially Anthony Ralston, who were the only players now left from his time there. And I see it as troublemaking. I don't see any truth in that. And that's just someone online who was maybe not happy at the Rodgers appointment. And the decision here from Callum McGregor to extend his stay by 5 years just makes a complete mockery of any claims, of that nature. On signing the new deal today, he said, "Brendan's a top manager and I had the pleasure of working with him before and seeing what he did with that group of players. His personality around the place gives the building another lift as well, so the club's in a really strong place. I'm delighted that the manager's back. I'm delighted that I'm going to be here long term as well, so here's to many more successful years." James, how important is Callum McGregor to Brendan Rodgers and his plans for the club?
Well, think about it that way. How would Brendan Rodgers' plans be looking right now if Callum McGregor had gone with Jota to Saudi?
They'd be in disarray.
Disarray is the word.
Yeah. He's just so pivotal to everything moving forward, isn't he?
Yeah. It's and it's not just his talent, it's the way he drives the team. We saw it when he was out, and absolute hats off to Matt O'Reilly for covering for him there last year, but the season before with the broken jaw and all that kind of stuff, when he was out, it was really tough. And then he came back for that 3-0 win against Rangers at Parkhead, and what a lift we got from just knowing he was in the first 11 that night. So you see these things when he's out. We were over in Leipzig, and when he had that challenge, it was like, that's a bad one, and you knew it wasn't going to be a week or two. So the way we felt that impact is because we knew what a talisman he is to that team.
And he showed how important his first game back. So I think he ended up, was it a hamstring or something he picked up that night at Leipzig. He missed 10 games, I think, across winter time, and then he came back to score the winner in the 1-0 win against Aberdeen.
Yeah.
And he doesn't score a lot of goals, but when he does, Paddy, they tend to be important ones.
They do. I think, and good finishes as well, actually. I think that's just been more down to the discipline of pulling back a little bit and pulling the strings of the team more than anything. I think what would be interesting to see is if Rodgers thinks he's still got another year in the tank to kind of go and be that up front kind of that forward thinking midfielder. Me personally, I'd like to see it. I think his technique and his just calmness in that area is really, really sought after. I'll never forget the chance he had against Gladbach away. and I thought, this guy's never going to make it for us. He put an absolute screamer of a chance. We could have took the game, put it wide. Following season, just sheer discipline from him. Following season, he sticks the same type of goal by Manuel Neuer. Was it Neuer? I can't remember if he actually played that game, but it was against Bayern Munich anyway. Massive opponents, and it's a testament to his determination. So I think he's pivotal in everything that we do. And like you say, it would be disarray if he was to leave. And it also shuts Ange even getting a sniff at him as well if he was to try and bring him down to Spurs, because I think he could do a job down there. I think he could do a job at any team down in the Premier League, to be honest.
I said it before, if Ange doesn't sign Callum McGregor, he needs to sign a Callum McGregor.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got bundles of money to do so he probably will. But whether it's Ange, Lenny, Ronnie Dyla and now Rodgers once again, every manager that's handled Callum McGregor has rated him so highly and spoken so highly of him. You know, he's been a focal point, and it's testament to Callum McGregor as well, because yes, Celtic are, you know, currently in a period of domestic domination and have been for some time, but there's been some bumps in the road, there's been some ups and downs, there's, you know, managers have left. You know, Paddy, we were speaking off air earlier on, Callum McGregor and Scott Brown, I suppose, are the guys that had to pick up a team when Rodgers left first time around. Left at short notice, left us with some big games coming up. I think Hearts a few days after Rodgers' first exit. And Callum McGregor was the guy, along with Bruni, that galvanised that dressing room. Yeah. Likewise, he's the guy that Ange turned round to when he needed someone to help him get the players on side. Callum McGregor's been the man. And Brendan Rodgers has clearly put his trust in him once again. I think he took him for lunch out in that fancy pad of his out in Mallorca, and once again he's relying on him. There's a quote from Brendan Rodgers today. He said, "He's the heartbeat of this team. He's taken on the responsibility of being captain of a worldwide institution with great effect and will look to continue that development. At 30 years of age, he's still got a lot that he can win and still lots of improvements to make, and I know that he's hungry to do that." And what I love about that quote, Paddy, is that Rodgers still thinks at 30 that Callum McGregor can improve, and it sounds like Callum McGregor is also bought into that. He's not saying, I'm the finished article, I'm 30, I'm now winding down the clock. He's still hungry to become even better.
We just have to look at Scott Brown for that. I think that there was a few murmurings under Dyler that Brown was done, and when Rodgers came in, galvanised his career as well. We went on a successful journey under Rodgers, 7 trophies out of 7 with him, but 9 out of 9 come the end of that season. And the massive player for me throughout all of that was Scott Brown and his determination to succeed. And he wasn't getting younger. He was in his 30s when he was doing it. And I think that is what Rodgers will see in Callum McGregor. I think Callum McGregor might play even longer than what Scott Brown could do it at that higher level. But it's just, if he keeps himself injury free, or as 2 seasons in a row we've lost him, albeit not niggling injuries or like recurring injuries, it's been freak moments, impact moments. Yeah. So he's massive for us. It's actually like, my biggest worry is that I can't remember the last time the guy, albeit when he was injured, I can't remember when he's had a proper rest during the summer. He's always doing it for Scotland. He's always doing it for Celtic.
He must, I think, not last season before, he was the most played footballer in world football.
Yeah,
you know,
it's somewhere between 60 and 70 games for a particular season. But some guys like that. Some guys like to keep ticking along, and where you take him out, you know, the team for a few games, he maybe would lose his rhythm and wouldn't quite enjoy that. You mentioned Bruni, interesting enough, he's also got a new deal. He signed a 2-year extension at Fleetwood there, so new deals all round for Celtic central midfielder types. James, just on those quotes from Rodgers, you know, the fact that he still thinks there's improvements, you know, to be made to Callum McGregor's game, do you think he can go on to reach even higher levels than he's already reached?
Absolutely. I mean, Rodgers' whole thing is, you know, you're currently here and I'll take you here. You know, he didn't, as Paddy's saying with Scott Brown, didn't say you're here and I want you to stay here and, you know, just, you know, galvanise the team. You know, he drove him higher. Brown was doing his coaching badges when Rodgers came in.
Yep.
And he went, that's on the shelf. You've got far too much to offer and you've got levels to reach yet. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, you know, with that lack of distraction, he did reach them. So it's not just Callum McGregor, it's every single player in that team. If you're staying at Celtic this next season, you'll have a plan. You know, he actually did it. He spoke about it in the press conference. He said every single player will have a plan. Tell me, what's your ambition? Where do you want to get to? Right, here's where we are. Here's where we're going to get to, and here's the steps in between. That goes for McGregor as much as anyone else.
I think that's one of the most exciting things about the Brendan Rodgers appointment, because we know there's going to be new signings. Listen, not too much has landed so far. We've got the two new guys, Tilio and Thiago home. They're confirmed. But there's going to be plenty of time for signings over the next few weeks. We spoke last week about how the fact that the window runs till 1st of September. So there's plenty of time for that. Yes, as fans would like to see new signings sooner rather than later, but that'll come. The other exciting bit, though, really is the fact that Brendan Rodgers is absolutely a coach who improves guys in its simplest form. We've already seen some brilliant stuff from the likes of Matt O'Reilly, Rio Hatate, Kyogo, name any number of Ange's signings, and now you've got this coach who says, that's brilliant, that's really great, I've watched what you've done for the last 2 years, now let's see how we can take that on another level. And I think that's going to be a really exciting time for the fans.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned one player in particular, Matt O'Reilly, who was doing a bit of kind of press stuff last week, and he was very warm on the training techniques and stuff, and people took his wee bit of style, and Ange's style, quite divorced from the, once it's off the training pitch kind of thing. I think Rodgers is, his style's a lot more intimate. It's like, there's a personal relationship there, and he uses that relationship to drive people on, and it couldn't be more exciting. There has to be obviously augmentations to the squad and guys, who are not quite going to make it. But once we've got that full picture in place, I absolutely can't wait.
I think Rodgers is your kind of like pyramid scheme salesman. Ego needs ego, so he just warms everyone up, makes everyone feel all right. Aye.
Snake oil salesman, is that what you call them?
Snake oil salesman, aye.
Whereas it's not a pyramid scheme, it's a multi-level marketing scheme.
Aye. Whereas Postecoglou doesn't.
Later on.
That's fine, no bother. If Postecoglou doesn't sell you the Hoover, that's it.
Go next door.
That's it.
Paddy, I mentioned it briefly earlier, but I've got a theory. Now, I think Callum McGregor might already have been one of, if not the top earner at the club, but the new deal ensures that he definitely will be, at least for now. And many have suggested, including yourself, James, that we might be about to break our transfer record this summer. And with that, if we're going to spend 9-10 million plus, with that comes players on big wages. Do you think part of the move from Callum McGregor is just to make sure you're keeping your captain happy there? Because how does it look if you bring in another new striker and stick him on 5-10 grand a week more than McGregor? Yeah. It might just rock the boat. And I think my theory is that Brendan Rodgers said, first and foremost, I want my captain happy. I want you use the word reward, Paddy, and I think that's right. They could have given him a 4-year deal or even a 3. They've given him 5, and I think potentially years 4 and 5 are maybe unnecessary, if that's the right way to put it. But they're saying, do you know what? You've been such a servant. You're such an important part of the plans moving forward. You're getting your 5-year deal, and that should keep Callum McGregor very happy. But do you think there's something in that, James, the fact that we might soon be seeing some guys on similarly big wages?
I think there's been a bit of rationalisation in the financial department at Celtic to say, we've ran a department in fear for 20 years since after Seville, when we really had to get our finances in order. We were just running at a loss. Now we're absolutely not. And they're saying, well, why are we banking money every year and not advancing as far as we should in the competitions we want to advance in? So what if it wasn't a cap of, not a cap, but say an average of, your high earners are on 25, 30, 35. What if that was 35, 40, 45? Does that attract a different calibre of player? And if so, run that through and look at the P&L and say, we're still in profit. Yes, we are. So why are we not doing it? So in line with bringing in, more expensive footballers, which we can afford, you have to pay their wages, which I imagine we can afford because we turn a surplus every year. And in line with that, you go, like absolutely, Rodgers has said, first things first, I don't want his agent anywhere near me. Get him paid right, get him signed up. He wants to be here. So you're pushing an open door as long as you get the contract right. And I think they've done it.
Yeah, and I think, the fact that Rodgers is just a few weeks in the door officially, that we've got this piece of business done very early, it's a real statement of intent. Did the club not release a statement last week to the stock exchange basically saying,
too much money.
We're loaded here and we don't know what to do with it, we've just got far too much money going on.
Despite guys on Twitter saying the total deal, 25 million, includes Jota's wages, which are 10 million a year, so we owe... had 5 million.
Sounds like Marek Tillman's deal.
Just as believable anyway.
But the statement was along the lines of we're going to be pulling far more money than we thought due to player trading and different things. It made me think of the scene in Narcos. You lads will have watched Narcos, where Escobar got to the stage where he was on the run, and that in itself something, but he had so much money, he was burning bundles of money to make firewood and keep the place eating. I can just see that happening at Celtic Park just now. There's just millions of pounds swimming about and people don't know what to do with it.
Lighting their cigars with it.
Yeah, all that.
I seen Tam Selleck's son put up an absolute belter to put with the Jota video, and he's doing the Dumb and Dumber thing. And they're wiping their tears away with the dollars. Absolutely brilliant.
Tam Selleck often just lands a nail, doesn't he? Just
spot on.
Very good. James, how important is Callum McGregor out with what he does in terms of his playing ability and his leadership skills on the park? How important is he to integrating new signings into the club? He's obviously a homegrown talent. He knows exactly what it's all about to be at a club like Celtic. And again, I think he's shown it, over the last couple of years. Ange Postecoglou brought in so many different players from so many different cultures, whether it's Japan, South Korea, Argentina, you name it. And I think Callum McGregor's the guy who's first guy to shake their hand when they come up to Lennoxtown and make them feel welcome and make them feel part of the group.
I think it precedes that. Joe Hart said the first phone call he got was from Callum McGregor, talking him through, where we were heading, what it's like to play at Celtic, and what the derbies are like and what Europe is like and the stadiums like, all of these things. So it's essential, and he's so much more than just a player and just a captain. He's an ambassador. All the players, when you see players talking about, they do these wee vox pops and who's the best at this, who's the best at that, who do you think will be a manager? Everyone says Callum McGregor. Who's the best trainer? Callum McGregor.
Yeah.
It's all of those things that just point to, he sees it as more than just playing football. He thrives in the role of and it surprised me actually of how strong a leader he is. We're talking pre-Ange, and it was like, I think the line I said was, our captain isn't currently in the squad, and he absolutely was.
Yeah, I was the same.
Yeah, I thought we had to buy a captain. I thought that was going to be the move, and fair play to Callum McGregor for, he's overcome various doubts. That had been maybe one of the more recent ones. As I said earlier on, I doubted his ability, generally speaking, and as I say, I wasn't alone with that. But he's continued to answer the critics. So listen, it's massive news for the support. It's a huge boost ahead of the new season, and well done to Callum McGregor, who thoroughly deserves the new deal. James, earlier last week, the news broke that Kyogo and Maeda had also committed themselves to new 4-year deals, so not quite as bold as McGregor, who's gone for 5 years, but it looks like those two lads will be around for 6 in a row. Sorry, Paddy. Were you pleased to see that news confirmed?
Yeah, we've got a lot of good players in the squad, and you want to keep them all. I thought Daizen was an interesting one, because there's a wee bit of, does that really fit a Rodgers style? Rodgers obviously thinks it does. You get so much from Daizen that you just won't from other players. And I mean, you get a more talented winger there, but the ball's coming back at you a lot more. It doesn't come back at you. There was some graphic put out yesterday, and he is top and to the right of the presses.
Yeah.
And, ask James Tavernier if he likes that Daizen signed a new deal.
No,
he does not.
He doesn't.
Because he just pins him in that corner and doesn't let him out. So that's obviously great from a start. I think we still need to sign a striker, but I definitely wanted to keep Kyogo as well. I think there's we should be greedy on good players and new players coming to the team. But I mean, Kyogo was a real statement of intent itself, because there was a lot of noise about, and bang, done.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next question, Paddy. I was going to ask, do you see Kyogo as our undisputed main striker as we head into another Champions League campaign, or do we need someone in to challenge him for that number 9 slot?
I do see him as the number 1 striker. I do. I think that's the plan for the season. I still think that we'll sign someone that's going to come and challenge him, though. I think that we forget that 6 months in between each year, or to the next transfer window, is massive for Celtic. I think it really makes us think that if we are going the way we are as a club, you look at the Juranovic deal, you look at Jota, there's no attachment here, and I think that this is how the team this club wants to operate at the moment. They're rewarding someone like Callum McGregor, as we've said. I think the Kyogo deal gives us maximum value if a team does come knocking. So it would be very clever for Celtic to make sure that they've got someone who's going to just walk into that role, and I think that we will sign a player as equal, if not better.
Yeah, and James, as we know, Rodgers, like Ange before him, he does tend to go with one main striker, but is your gut feeling that we need maybe just a wee bit more quality for Champions League?
It's harsh, because Kyogo's had another year of his own development, but we know that he fluffed his lines in Europe last year. That's a fact, we know that. And a peak Moussa Dembele, for example, would have tucked those chances away.
Hold that thought. You take the Moose back?
No, I don't think he's fit enough to play. No,
No.
I think he's got a medical issue. That's why he's not been picked up.
Would you take a fitness
This
of
is
Dembele back?
Paddy's inside track.
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah, love the move.
If him and Rodgers could bury the hatchet on whatever their issue was before, yeah, I'm I loved him. I thought he was a top striker.
He's
And
26.
is he?
I think so.
He's gubbed.
He's not fulfilled the
Gubbed, lads.
potential, has he?
It's good. He
Managed to
said
get the inside track.
he collapsed in training with Leon. And
Atletico.
It was Atletico, sorry, and it's I suspect it told him the heart.
Oh,
So all the big teams that were linked with him were like,
step
nope,
back.
Sure.
not touching that.
Well, listen,
it's a shame for him.
First and foremost, hope his recovery's okay
course.
and he can get his career back on track. But as a striker, he was a phenomenon, and he'd be a great option to have.
So there's my, I suppose, question back to you then. If we could sign today's Moussa Dembele from back then and you put him in as your number one first choice striker, what happens to Kyogo?
James, I don't answer questions, I just ask them.
I know that.
That's the easy out. It's a great question. Peak Dembele versus peak Kyogo, from what we've seen, I think peak Dembele gets the nod for me.
Yeah, I think we need to sign a 21-year-old red hot prospect that doesn't start. Kyogo starts, but starts to challenge.
Is that not what it was?
I'm going to.
Well, I'll come to that. There you go.
I'm going to say something about Kyogo. I was very, very critical of him in the Champions League last year. I thought that, I was kind of swithering on why did Giakoumakis maybe not get the nod here or thinking about it that way. But the attitude to turn it around for the remainder of this last season and go and propel us to winning the treble, in my opinion. And I always think about, there's a little worry that he's 28. We signed Henrik Larsson when he was 27.
Aye.
And look at that guy. Remember him? I just think that for the mental character to be able to turn around and say, do you know what? I'm the best striker here. You're not getting my jersey. None of you are. I think he'll kick on this season. And a statement of intent from him to go and sign that deal. I think he's been promised your number one striker at this club. I think it'll be huge for us next year.
I also think within the season past there, with 34 goals speaks for itself, of course, and he was the main man. He swept the boards with all the awards. It's also a season in which he had to manage the very real disappointment of missing out on the World Cup with his country. It's clearly a dream of any player, but it must have been foremost in his thoughts. And you'll have seen the footage, the video where he actually receives the news, and he was crestfallen. And he clearly had put so much into that being a possibility. It didn't happen for him. He could have taken one of two approaches. He could have, felt sorry for himself and moped about. And what he done is he picked himself up and just started banging in goals right, left and centre. And I think it says a lot about his character and his attitude. And the fact that he signed a 4-year deal tells you he's very happy where he is. And I think you could see even more out of him next season. It's a huge season ahead for him, isn't it? He's got that security now. He's committed to spending the next few years in Glasgow. But he could also now really propel himself into a different status. Can you become a legend in 2 years? Maybe, maybe not. In 3 years you can, and particularly if you have a big Champions League campaign. So it's a huge season ahead for him, James.
It is, and that is, attitude's a big thing. We spoke about individually, Giakoumakis' attitude wasn't right because it was all about me. Kyogo's attitude was, as you said, I've had a real disappointment there, and I'm going to deliver for this team, and I'm going to push this team to a treble.
Yeah.
And you can't have enough attitudes like that in your squad. But I do think we need that challenge, and I think O is too raw and needs a lot of development, and will get the development. He's in the right place for it. But if you went with just Kyogo and O, and Kyogo got injured before we're playing Bayern Munich in Germany, how would you feel?
I'd be a wee bit concerned. It's interesting though. So you stated your concerns about O last week. I had to put out some fires for you on Twitter. You're welcome.
That's all right.
Had to step in. Who's the idiot that doesn't think O's a good player? And what was the other point? There was something that Miffed. That we should sign Duke from Aberdeen. It raised a couple of eyebrows, but I don't listen. Like my own Callum McGregor statement of years gone by, you're not alone in thinking O's still got work to do. Where do you stand on it?
There's nothing wrong with that.
I know it's okay. I'm not criticising you.
There's nothing wrong with him having work to do. That's good. It's good that he's got work to do.
What do you think?
I still think he'll score 15 league goals this season, Marty.
15? You've bet with Marty, haven't you?
I bet with Marty on that one. I think there's definitely something there to work with. I really do. But I'm with James. I still think we maybe need to just bolster in that department. I think an injury could be, I wouldn't say catastrophic for us. I think we've still got enough about us. You could even see Maeda slotting into that role if need be. I just think someone just to shore us up a little bit. But I don't think it's someone coming in to take Kyogo's place.
I would be surprised if a striker isn't on the list somewhere. Mm-hmm. So we'll find all this out in the next few weeks in terms of the moves we make in the market. But I think a striker must be somewhere on
would
the list.
Would you take Vardy?
Nah.
No.
Can ram it.
Good answer, guys.
Yeah.
Correct.
We'll move on quickly.
Would you?
No.
Paddy, I wasn't 100% sure that Maeda was a Brendan Rodgers kind of player, and he generally likes wingers who have got a bit of trickery, a bit of something about them to maybe get by a man rather than just the the kind of bombing direct pace that Maeda has. But do you think it's a sign of his intent to continue with the aggressive high press that Ange adopted?
I think Rodgers will be clever. I also think he'll be very respectful not to disrupt rock the boat too much with this formation that we're playing. And I think he'll work into that. I really, really do. I still think we'll see inverted fullbacks next season as well. I don't think he touches a thing. No. I
think he does touch a number of things.
Honestly, we'll see.
I think,
but he might give us. Sorry to interrupt. He might give us a bit of variation in that sense. He'll maybe know when to play it and when to kind of go. Like I'm going to say, Rodgers in Europe, but there's been some horrendous results there, but some really, really good ones too.
Well, just on that, right, so you'll have heard me speaking last week about the Owen O'Connell interview, which people can now listen to. So Owen O'Connell, young Irishman who made his way to Celtic as a young lad, played under Lennon, Dyla and Rodgers. I was particularly keen to hear his thoughts on Brendan Rodgers as a coach, and first and foremost, he's got him, if you're listening and not watching, I can't help you here, but he's got him up here, Paddy. He's got him really high in terms of how he rates him as a coach. And I asked him the question directly. So Celtic took a really heavy result in Barcelona, 7-0, terrible result. And a lot of people, myself included, come away from that thinking, why does Rodgers not adjust his system for Europe? Why does he not make any changes? And I asked Owen O'Connell, who played that night, came off the bench, I asked him directly, I says, is it just the same approach? Is it just, one way and that's all? He says, you couldn't be further from the truth. He said there's different tweaks and different adjustments that regular fans just won't see. And that's right, that should be the case. That's kept within the dressing room. Celtic had a penalty at 1-0 down, which could have made a difference on the night, and that in itself is something. And it's little wonder at times that a Barcelona with a front three of Messi, Suarez and Neymar tear you apart if you kind of fluff your lines. And if you go 3 or 4 down, the heads can start to go. But he says, don't be fooled into thinking that he just plays one way and one way only. He has his nuances and he has his, changes to the system that he makes when required. And I thought that was encouraging to hear.
We also took a 1-0 lead in Paris as well against PSG. If you remember that game as well, finished 7-1, I believe. Or 5-1.
6 or 7 lucky
one of them. 6, of course. But what I also think Rodgers has got in his locker, and it's not to say it's a bad thing, I think he plays his teams out there to be a bit of an eye-opener of what he needs.
There can be a bit of that, it's to show the board, listen, this is how I want to play, but I need better players to do so. There's definitely that. But I just think in terms of the changes he may make or not to Ange's system, we know there is ego with Brendan Rodgers. Sometimes it's positive ego, sometimes not so much. But I think he wants to put his own stamp on this side, and he doesn't want to be seen as the guy who's returning just to be the caretaker for Ange's team and just put them back out in the same shape, the same formation, and say, just go and do what you've done the last couple of years. He's a talented coach, he's an intelligent coach, and he'll have his differences, he'll have things he wants to do. The most obvious one will be the inverted fullbacks. We'll see very early on in the process if he intends to follow that up. I'm not sure he will. He has done in the past. He said he experimented with it at Liverpool before he even got to Celtic, and I think he's done it on occasion at Leicester. I'm not sure. I think we might see a bit more of a return to traditional overlapping fullbacks, which, separate conversation, might open the door for somebody like Bernabeu, but it's going to be very telling. We've got a friendly coming up on Wednesday in Portugal. That'll be behind closed doors, but we've then got those games out in Japan, I think, on the 19th and 22nd of July, and people will be paying a really close eye to see what he shapes up with.
Listen, I get where you're coming from. I just think that if you're Callum McGregor, for example, going into that meeting with Brendan Rodgers, I wouldn't be surprised if he's saying the guys are extremely comfortable with this formation, because we can't forget how quickly they adapted to it. You're 2 months, you're playing at such a high level, a high intensity, and an incredible understanding. An understanding that brought someone like Greg Taylor up to a great level, and an understanding that brought Anthony Ralston into the fold to be a squad player right back. I just think that what it really done was open a lot of doors and actually bamboozled a lot of the teams in the league and thinking, well, hang on a minute, how are we combating this? Isn't just coming down the wings, this is coming straight through us. I think you take, listen, he was very, very good at the overlapping side of things. I always think of Kieran Tierney getting down that left side under Rodgers was brilliant times. But you mix it up. If you're Rodgers, you don't let that go. You know that's worked, and you know that a lot of teams in the league struggle to contain it. You would be foolish to try and change all of that.
James, a wee bit of a danger if you let the tail wag the dog and if you let the players dictate what formation you're going with?
The dog will be wagging the tail for it, I think, Paddy.
Yeah.
Modern day football, guys, I think it's a bit different. I do.
I think there'll be not wild changes, but there'll be changes. Rodgers stated that he watched every single game last year, maybe the year before. He knows how he played. I know for a fact he'll have watched probably several times the games in the Champions League, and he'll have been watching and going, if that was just a wee bit of that, we could have had an option here or X, Y, Z. He's a lot more pragmatic than Postecoglou. This is why I don't want to go back from the style of football we've had under the last 2 years, because it's even the tunes. It's been the most exciting, most enjoyable football because it's the way you play and it's the way we always say that we play, and we do. But Rodgers is going to just pick that up off of Postecoglou and take it to the next level. He's not going to come in and obliterate it. I think we will see a wee bit of inversion, maybe not to the same degree. I think we'll see a bit more recycling the ball because he's careful in possession. But there will be changes, but it'll all be changes for the positive. He's not going to take us back to a negative style of football. It's one of the reasons I'm not really up for a McTominay type signing, because I think that is quite a, retain possession, spread the ball kind of thing. We've got enough of that going on. We need more, attacking. If we were scoring more goals in Europe, we're through in Europe.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to see what he eventually goes with. I think there's no doubt that he's also got a fire stick with the old IPTV, because there's no way you can watch every Celtic game. Yeah. So he's a savvy man in many ways.
He's still got his Celtic TV login.
Of course it is. But it's great to see key players, just going back to key players like Kyogo and Daizen Maeda, committing themselves to the new regime ahead of the new season. Just a quick one for you. If you to pick just two more players to do the same, who would you like them to be amongst the current squad?
To sign on?
Yep, to commit themselves to the new deal.
CCV for a start, and Hatate or Johnson.
Carter Vickers or Hatate.
Yeah, I've got some suggestions in front of me, and it reads Hatate, Carter Vickers for my first two, with Alistair Johnson third, and then there's guys like O'Reilly, Abada, and any other number of guys. But CCV is so important. This Miff said for him, a huge transfer window would be keeping Kyogo and keeping Carter Vickers, and you've got to agree with that kind of sentiment, haven't you?
I think we will. I think clubs will just be monitoring him and basically seeing how's he going to recover. That's the big worry for us at the moment. I don't think it's huge in terms of our season. I still think we'll get time if we realise it's not going to be the greatest of recoveries. We can get someone in. But I just don't think any teams are going to take a punt on him. I think January will be the time we need to watch CCV. Yeah. If he gets back to a good level of fitness. And
that would also depend on what, if any, level of Europe we find ourselves in after Christmas. That could, play a factor. If we find ourselves Champions League or even moving into the Europa, some guys might be tempted to stay out. So it'll be interesting to see. I mentioned Miff there, and apologies for anyone who's tuned in to hear him. He's obviously not here today. He's currently sunning himself on a beach somewhere, and according to the WhatsApp, James, he's having a smashing time.
I said the first of today went down at 11 a.m. this morning.
Yeah, I think he's been topping up the tan and getting scooshed. So good luck to Miff and the family out there. Paddy, as you'll have heard from last week, the mystery celt is no more, at least for now, and we're running with a new feature called Path to Paradise. Someone dug us up on that on Twitter because it sounds far too much like the Path to Paradise that we had during the COVID season.
It's chilling.
And it brought back some horrible memories.
I knew the phrase for something.
So the name is very much subject to change if anyone's got any inspiration out there. But put simply, Paddy, the way it works, I'll tell you the clubs that a player has played for before he moved to Celtic, and I'll also name any teams that he then went to after he left, and you just need to name the player in question. Are you ready for this week's teams?
Go for it.
Yeah. Reading, Leicester City, Inverness Calais, Aberdeen, Celtic, Aberdeen. I'll tell you what, before you give me any answers, have a wee think and I'll come back to you on it in just a moment. So while the lads are trying to work that one out, I want to let you know about Celtic 321, which is our new weekly e-newsletter that we send out completely free every Tuesday. Celtic 321 is a short form email that includes 3 articles worth reading, 2 videos worth watching and 1 quote worth thinking about from the week in Celtic. To sign up, visit our website where you'll see the sign up option on the homepage, or alternatively just click the link that we've included in the show notes for this episode. You can explore Celtic 321 and all of our additional content right now at thecelticexchange.com. What have you got, James? Paddy, is he correct?
I think so.
He is spot on, so we'll get that beeped out. But yep, you've nailed it there, so well done. What do you think of the format, Paddy? Is it something you think you could see yourself doing well at?
I did not know he played with
Leicester.
Reading and Leicester. Yeah. There you go.
Wikipedia told me today.
There you go.
There's also a bundle of loan clubs in there, which I've not included. That might kind of muddy the waters for some, but it's an interesting format. It seems to have get some good pick up online as well, so we'll crack on with that for the foreseeable future. As we covered in detail in last week's show, Jota has now made the move to Saudi Arabia for some crazy money, and it's hard to blame him for doing so. Some fans were annoyed that he hadn't posted any sort of farewell message on his Instagram, but then on Sunday night, Jota went a step further by posting the deepest farewell message you're ever going to see. So let's hear a wee clip from that message now.
People often ask me what's so special about Celtic, and I feel like there's no straight answer, there's no fair answer for that. The answer lies in such a deep feeling, a sense, an emotion. There's this mystical fog flowing around Celtic Park that induces you to this sense of football edge. This football heritage gave us unforgettable moments, and you can't just explain it, you need to feel it, you need to respect it.
Not sure what that music track is in the background.
I think it's
as
the
well.
Shins.
M83 outro.
Paddy the DJ has spoken. James, we've said it in the past, but the guy's part philosopher, part footballer, but all superstar. It's maybe not for everyone, but what did you make of his parting message?
Not seen it.
Why not?
First and foremost, 100% genuine. Right?
How do you know if you've not seen it?
Because I heard that and I've heard clips of it. And also, Jota's time at Celtic was a genuine joy for him. You know, that there's no denying that. You know, he's very authentic in that regard, and a big contract get put down, he has to take that, right? So absolutely fine. In terms of why I've not watched it, it's not really for me, that kind of stuff. In terms of I'm busy looking forward, and that's like how I kind of approach these things. You know, there's a time and a place to, you know, be all weepy-eyed and romantic and stuff.
When is that time for you, James?
I'll let you know when I get there.
Yeah. He's a cold man, Paddy, isn't he?
Yes,
The robot.
Paddy, I think lots of fans were making that noise last week about, you know, where's his message and all that kind of stuff, and he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. So yeah, for anyone who's not watched it, it's well worth checking out, and I think it is very sincere. You know, it's not something you would expect of a Scottish player or a UK based player, but he's got that kind of Latin flair type thing going on, and he's
just guru Jota.
He's got something about him, but you know, I think it's about 2.5 minutes long, but it's very sincere. But he basically talks about this special time in his life and the fact that he came to Glasgow a wee bit scared about what was going on, and he just got made to feel so welcome. He's improved as a player, improved as a person, and he genuinely, you know, wishes Celtic all the best. And I just thought it was great to see.
I think we both worked out so well for each other. I think that him joining Celtic was such a risk for him. It was massive getting a player from a Benfica's academy who was sought after. Benfica were actually saying, we'll see how he gets on this season, and he might be knocking the door for the first team next year. I think a massive signing for us, and to construct a deal like that, which only works out on the 30% of the profit. I think I'm right. Yes, no, sorry, 30% of the
contract.
Total deal.
Yeah.
The signing fee.
Aye, the signing fee without any add-ons, without anything like that is massive. Well done for Celtic. Yeah. All he had to do is show up and entertain, and he did it. He did it. An incredible player for us. Now, I think I agree with you guys on here that I'm getting more hardened to these points where we're losing players. It's happening with managers, but we've been crying out for this as a football club for years. This structure of getting the players in, selling them for a lot, reinvesting. I think that's what we had as a club now. I'll miss him. A great entertainer, absolutely brilliant entertainer. But there will be many more.
Yeah, that's the idea. Get the next Jota.
Aye.
Miff maintained that he'd become hardened as well when Ange moved on, and now when Jota moved on. I sent him the Jota video when it came out on Sunday night. If you don't mind beeping him out, yeah, Dave, Miff replied back saying, I swore I was finished, but f*** me, man, they pull you back in. I love you, Jota. That was his statement. He just get caught up in the emotion. Someone also replied in the YouTube comments last week about, okay, Jota's gone and we wish him all the best, but we need to now break the bank and get a big name in to replace him. And somebody sensibly replied, Jota wasn't a big name. We'd never heard of Jota. You know, we got him from, you know, obscurity, from Benfica reserves. And I think gone are the days of needing to sign a big name. And actually, again, I said it to you tonight, Paddy, before we came on, I'd be more than happy for Celtic to continue signing guys we've never heard of, so long as they go on to produce in the same way that the team of the last 2 years have done.
we've been tracking Tilio for
2 years.
2 years or more, I think it was. So it might be you're getting your next Jota for way less than that. There's going to be the development guys. I take the guy's point that to level up in Europe this year, we also need to, level up on the calibre of experienced player we have and blend that with your Tilio, who comes through and becomes, a 20 million, 30 million pound player. And from what we've seen of him, he's got huge potential and he's a real kind of crowd pleaser. So you've got to have both, and by the end of the transfer window, I think we will.
I would just hate to think that because Celtic are cash rich at this moment in time, I'd hate to think we just start going back down to the English Premier League and the Championship and signing guys that we know or that we see in Match of the Day, because I think you just get held to a ransom.
McTominay's part of that. Why would you go and blaze 30 million of whatever it is, 20 million of your budget on a guy who's going to be 80 grand a week to pull you away from your football style, to maybe upset other players and all these things? So I don't see that. I don't see us doing much in the Championship or the Premiership. I'd be disappointed if we do.
I'd hold my hands up if McTominay was to end up signing for us. But a big thinking for me on that is that we've had a manager that's come in here and said, guys, you need to look further afield than what you're looking at.
Yep.
And I really still think that we will do that. I remember speaking, I spoke to you about this actually before we come on here as well. Do you know, the one player that really stood out for me against Celtic in the Champions League, that kind of bossing midfielder, was your man Schläger that played with Leipzig. A player of that calibre, just with that little bit more experience, played a few seasons at a higher level than what we're at, but maybe just finds himself needing that little turn back in and put in the right direction. They're very few and far between. They really are. I just think that the club will have been looking though. We will always look for a name that no one knows, of course we will, because if we've got good scouting there, then we hope that we can take that risk. And the success rate's been incredible lately. But I just think to go to that next level, someone that's played at that higher level, we are going to need to dip into that market as well.
We might need to do so, we might need to spend a bit more money, but I think the key to the whole thing is, and I think there's a bit of confidence right now in the scouting and recruitment team under Mark Lowell, is that you need to find, Schläger, did you say the guy was called?
Schläger, aye.
You need to get these guys before they get to Leipzig. So when they're making their move from their, wherever they're from, in fact, is he from Germany?
He's from Austria.
There you go. So before he leaves Austria, that's got to be the key, isn't it? Get them when they're 19, 20, when they've got 60, 70 appearances under the belt, they've made some waves. Can we get them before the big move?
The big factor with that though is that it then comes with the mentality of playing in a bigger league. So we always speak about this mentality of Celtic in Europe. You worry about the away games you go into. You've always got this hope at home, but we worry about the away games going into. What mistake is going to happen? Are we going to lose this one? That is something that has just kind of been bred through the club for years. And I'm going dating back to the last time we won in a knockout game. And it's something that really needs to get knocked out. So how do you do that? You go and buy a player that's done it. That's the big thing for me.
It's a simple explanation, but it's spot on, isn't it? You just get guys that know how to do it and can perform on that big stage. Just to close out the Jota chat, again, I got a wee bit annoyed last week with some comments from some folk online, giving it the whole, shut the door on your way out, that's you done, and once a player leaves Celtic, he's dead to me and all that kind of thing. I just think that's really poor. And I mean, Paddy, can we not just appreciate a player for his efforts whilst at the club and wish him all the best?
Absolutely. I think it's the same happened with a manager. There was some mumblings about, just the disappointment of the way he left, some people brandishing him a rat and stuff like that. The position we're left in because of Ange Postecoglou and the position we're left in because of players like Jota is massive. We're in such a good position. We're a brilliant position as a football club.
Yeah. Just on Ange, as you mentioned, we've not heard much by way of anything from him talking about Celtic. There's a wee clip of him speaking at a presser today for Spurs.
Because he's a Spurs manager.
And listen, he's never going to do the flowery Jota type video, and I don't think Ange's on Instagram, James, and I can't see him on TikTok or anything like that, but no wee statement, no nothing. Ange's he's done his job. I'm like you, Pad, he's done a brilliant job. He's left us in a brilliant position over the last couple of years, and he just moves on. I think Jota's a more emotional type guy, and it's maybe more a thing for a player to do than a manager. But I think by and large we're all okay with that, aren't we? And it's time to move on.
Yeah.
But Jota, he leaves us as a winner of 5 trophies, including a treble. He scored some big goals in his time against Rangers and in the Champions League, and he gave his all for the club for 2 years, and we wish him all the best. Just a bit of other news as we start to head towards the final stage of the show. So Celtic have pulled out of their trip to South Korea, where they were due to play Wolves on the 26th of July. And this is due to, inverted commas, financial and logistical issues with the promoter. The games against Yokohama Marinos and Gamba Osaka on the 19th and 22nd of July, though, will still go ahead. Separate news, Connor Hazard, James, hero of the 2020 Scottish Cup final, which Celtic won on penalties v Hearts, is away to Plymouth Argyle for a fee of around about 150 grand. And finally, Celtic midfielder David Turnbull turns 24 today, 10th of July, so a very happy birthday to him. James, any comments on any of those items?
I think that good for Hazard to make a move. I thought he'd have gone for a bit more. Experienced guy, he's played a bit international as well. He's obviously won a treble for Celtic and was pivotal in winning that treble. I don't think he's the level we need. He's not the level we need, but I thought he'd have gone for a wee bit more. But I'm delighted for him. He's getting a move. I think there's better clubs out there for Connor Hazard than Plymouth Argyle, but it's maybe too late for that.
I would disagree. I'm surprised we got that for him. I really am. I thought as much as he was pivotal in his getting that victory, he also nearly cost us that victory as well.
In the same
game.
He had a real up and down performance, didn't he? Regardless of that though, from his point of view, he's cemented his place in Celtic history. Nobody can take that away from him, and good luck to him for that. But he found himself in fortunate circumstances that we had Barkas, and was it Bain was the third goalie that was vying for position, and nobody could really nail it during that season that was, the COVID Cup and all that stuff. So Connor Hazard, good luck to him. Hope he goes on to build a good career down there. But yeah, as James says, not the right level of quality for Celtic and what we're looking to achieve. In terms of the tour of South Korea and Japan, so it's now just Japan, and it's not ideal, is it? It's kind of late in the day. It was meant to be 26th of this month, so maybe 2 and a bit weeks away. And Celtic have had to pull out the game. There are rumours that we'll still play Spurs, but now at the Aviva in Dublin. Wolves, of course. No, I was right, sorry. There's rumours that we are going to play Spurs at the Aviva.
Really?
I've heard that. The 29th.
Don't know how accurate that might be. That would be a hell of an interesting. Bit too soon for the Ange reunion, isn't it?
Gets out of the way. Gets out of the way.
Yeah, but it might just rock the boat a wee bit in terms of Rodgers' plans. The games that he'll play, the bounce games that he'll play this week in Portugal, they won't tell him a great deal. We've seen it in previous seasons. It's shadow teams. It's kids teams for the most part, and you don't really learn too much about your players. But the bigger games, Yokohama's obviously Ange's old team out there. Gamba Osaka, I think that's, and I'm wrong, Grand Passat was where Gary Lineker played, wasn't it? I don't know my Japanese football well at all, James, it turns out. But they're two of the bigger names over there, so they'll be better tests on the 19th and 22nd of July. We touch on him now and then, but David Turnbull, 24 today, still a very young man, Paddy. Is there a reprieve on the cards for him under Rodgers?
No.
Okay.
Just kill that shot right there. Nah, I don't think so. Happy to be proved wrong, but no.
I'm holding out a wee bit of hope for Dave Turnbull and a big bit of hope for Mikey J.
I think you look at them both.
Yeah.
I think Turnbull's head is already a wee bit away with his agent change last year, and he's close to, I think it's Matt he's close to Ryan Christie, moved to the same agent, and Christie's down there going, I've got all this money, wouldn't you like some of the money? And you can go to a club like that. And Turnbull is an undoubted talent. I don't think he suits a really fast attacking football team. I think he likes time on the ball. He likes to be considered in his moves on the pitch, and I think for that reason he'll move on, but not because he's a bad player.
And you've made that point a couple of times, and I think it definitely applies in terms of Ange ball, to use a term. I think it maybe suits him a bit more in
less so
Brendan ball, if that's a thing. Is that a thing, Paddy?
Yeah,
time will tell.
Yeah, I suppose it will. But it's funny to think 24 is still very young in terms of a footballer, and he's fitted a lot into that short career. He said his career-threatening injury. He said his move that fell through to Celtic. He's got back on track. He was one of the, I spoke about Hazard during the COVID season. Turnbull was one of the high points, wasn't he? And saying that, so was Ismail Soro. So, it was just a fun old season altogether. But I'm genuinely very hopeful of David Turnbull, and everyone knows how I feel about Mikey Johnson. And you're right though, James, at the very least, Brendan Rodgers will clear the slate with them and say, you've got an opportunity here over the next 3-4 weeks to prove to me that you deserve to be part of this. And it's going to be really interesting to see how it goes.
I just don't know if he'll want it. I think if you think about his career-threatening injury, as well, he should go and make his move and make his dough.
Maybe, but if he starts to find his way in the team and there's Champions League football for him and the exposure of that, you just never know. Football's funny because, Tony Ralston was out the door a few years ago, and then Ange comes in and out of nowhere, we've got a guy that, fans could really get behind. That could happen for any one of a number of players in the squad.
Of course it does, but you need to want it as well. I think Ralston really seen that was last chance saloon and was told this is your last option, basically at this level, I think. And he put everything into it. He bought into everything Ange was teaching him and really gave a great account of himself. I think is probably the highest level he could get under Ange he reached that. I don't think he's better than Johnston. I think I have to say that he was given Juranovic a run for his money because Juranovic's head was out the door, whereas Johnston, I think, has still got levels to go to.
He's high up already.
Yeah, but I take nothing away from Elson and what he's done, and he'll still be part of the squad next season. And he'll be needed. Of course,
Absolutely.
he'll be needed. It's a long year. Whereas someone like David Turnbull, I've just not seen that confidence and that drive to really tell me that he wants to be here.
Yeah, I think the drive is there. I think the confidence isn't. See if you watch his Motherwell recovery video. It's an outstanding
It's great.
piece of video, but it also really shows you what a driven young guy he is.
Aye.
I think he's got the drive, but I think he does like the confidence.
Because he's quiet and he's mild-mannered by nature. You know, he's not a particularly vocal guy. The last thing you'd see from him is a Jota type video, for example. He's not that kind of guy. But James is right. I don't know if you've not seen that video or not, Paddy, but it's well worth checking out because it just shows the quiet
The
determination of the character. It's really impressive, actually.
You're wagging your pen at me as if it's going to change my mind.
Come on now. Come on. Okay, listen, Paddy, a really busy episode to return to. What's your overall feelings just now ahead of the new season?
I just think optimistic, obviously. I think it's very, very early days in our pre-season, very early days in our transfer business as well. I think Rodgers will just be getting a feel of who he's properly working with. I genuinely believe he's been told, do what you need to do to get a team that's going to put a bit of a statement down. This season might not be the year we go make massive waves in Europe. I still think that could come after a year of playing under him, and that could come next season. But I don't think he won't give it a try. I think he'll really, really push for it this year.
I think it's a real driver for him.
Aye.
Yeah. James, final word goes to you. Anything to add as we look to round off this week's show?
Paddy's wrong.
Go with. He said a lot of stuff tonight.
We will make a lot of strides in Europe this year. That's what he's
Okay.
here for. That's what he's here for. He's, and obviously you can build into that next year, but Rodgers wants it this year for sure.
I think he definitely wants it. I just think that
I think we'll back him to get it.
I hope so. It's a big ask getting the players to gel as quickly again, though.
Yeah.
I think it is. Ange made that look easy, and it's not easy. And I think, just from a fan's point of view, so long as we see progress in Europe, we're don't go and win the thing, Paddy. We can win it a couple of years down the line. But as long as we see progress, potentially getting out the groups or getting a wee run in Europa, I think we'd all be happy with that.
One thing I would say is a message to any Celtic fans there who are running about with their hair on fire because we haven't signed any new players yet. Yeah. Calm down.
You shaved yours off.
It's on fire.
I think you're right though. I think the time for signings will come, but exciting statements been made in the last couple of weeks here between the Callum McGregor news, Kyogo, Daizen, Maeda, and whoever else.
Big foundations.
Massive.
Lots to look forward to. So that wraps things up on this latest episode of the Celtic Exchange Weekly. Thanks to James and Paddy for joining me today, and as always, our thanks to you for tuning in. Don't forget to visit our new website at thecelticexchange.com where you can sign up for Celtic 321 and enjoy all of our additional content. But in the meantime, thanks for listening, and we'll see you again this time next week.